All right, I'm going to interrupt the music and just say, surprise, we are going to give this a try again. We tried to do a live stream this morning. I started it by presenting a wide variety of different Guggenheim scissors. We had gotten contacted by Stephen from Guggenheim, and he said, we really would appreciate Susie and you providing a testimonial. We know that you've been big supporters of us. So that's what we did. But by the time we got through presenting all of the scissors and shears that we have from Guggenheim, all of a sudden the Spectrum internet up here in the mountains decided that it wanted to go on a siesta. And we started having all kinds of issues, and we finally had to end the live stream without ever presenting the Necchi machine that really was the showcase of the entire live stream. So maybe I took things out of order and starting with Guggenheim, but I have no regrets. We'll just give it a try again and see if we can present this Necchi machine. It's a model NE30, more contemporary than you're used to seeing on this channel. But the Italians have been making machines for a very, very long time. And the title alludes to that. If you look at the title of this live stream, they've been making sewing machines since 1919. So they've been around much longer than companies like Elna that we recently showcased with Emma's Lotus SP model. So the Italians are a proud people, and they make some great sewing machines. Many of you probably even have some in your collection. And it all started with Vittoria Necchi in Pavia, Italy. Pavia, Italy is where the Necchi sewing machine company started. And he had just gotten back from serving in World War I and started producing sewing machines in his family's foundry. And the first model was a BD, was released in 1924 and was based on a Singer 15 model. There was a lot of copycatting going back then. The Italians did it to Singer. Singer did it to other companies. And you really started to struggle with knowing who started what. Who started what? But but the end result is the Necchi Sewing Machine Company did establish itself. You might remember they really got a big impetus and a really big movement within their growth when they adopted a certain young lady to be their spokesperson. Does anyone remember who that was? Who was the young lady that represented Necchi for a number of years? A couple of hints. She was on the big screen with famous people like Cary Grant. She was thought to be quite a looker. She was quite a sex symbol back in the 1950s, 1940s as well. Always just a gorgeous, gorgeous gal. Does anyone remember who that is? Yeah, yeah. I'm looking at the live chat finally. So yeah, Sophia Loren. Sophia Loren became their spokesperson and really was able to get them into the American marketplace. Remember, America was still kind of kind of getting over the fight that we had with the Japanese in World War II and the bitterness that we had for that culture and those people. And so the Japanese really ran into some big walls when they tried to bring their Japanese machines into the American marketplace. The Italians thought, well, we're not gonna go down that road. We're gonna go down a road that's going to give us an opportunity to have success from the get go. And so they started looking around for somebody that they could push to the front, representing their brand, representing the Necchi Sewing Machine Company. And they stumbled across Sophia Loren. And oh my goodness, did she open doors for them? And people already loved her. She was such a sweet lady on screen, and apparently in life as well. She wasn't just a good actress that made you like her. She was just a sweet gal that when you met her, you just liked her even more. And so Necchi was very wise for bringing her into their fold, and lo and behold, they had a great deal of success, and they had no opposition at all bringing their Italian machines into the marketplace like the Japanese had experienced. So smart people, and also great innovators. And this gentleman right here, I've never given him a name, and he's been in the workshop back in Wisconsin. He was in the workshop in Minnesota, and now he's in the workshop in Kentucky, and he's never had a name, but I decided to choose him as the one that kind of represents that wholesome culture that we sometimes think of when we think of the Italians. The Italians are just they're just warm, they're loving, they're inviting. If you ever go to Italy, I've never been there. I hope to go there someday with Susie, but if you ever go to Italy, you just feel like you're part of their family. You meet them right away and you just like them. I had the same experience when I was living in Germany for 3 years as a service member. I had heard all the stories about Germans being cold and standoffish. It was exactly the opposite. They were warm, they were kind, they were generous. And I've heard the same thing about the Italians. So this little guy right here is the representation in our workshop here for any machine that comes out of Italy. So I'm going to set him to the side, and we're going to jump into this so that we can have some assurance, hopefully, that we can get through this live stream and actually present Cindy's Necchi model NE30 before the internet goes funky again. That's the only thing about living up in a remote area like Susie and I do. Living up in the mountains is you've got all kinds of things that can happen that can jeopardize your ability to reach out to the world, depending on internet. So let's get into this. I'll put on a little bit of music as I'm getting this machine turned around. And you'll notice as well, we are in the fullness of fall right now. And so I decided to grab a couple of leaves that are around the property up here and put them out on the bed of Cindy's machine so you could just feel that fall. You can almost smell the leaves if we had smell-o-vision, right? You can almost smell the leaves. I don't know about back in Wisconsin and Minnesota, where Susie and I hail from. I think they've got some winter going already. Maybe they've already had fall, or maybe they had no fall at all. I have no idea. but I know that there's quite a bit of snow that's starting to hit the US out west and other places. If you've already gotten hit by some blustery, wintry weather, by all means, type that into the chat. Or if you watch this later as a video, because again, this was unannounced. I don't think we'll have a very big audience tonight. We'll just have a few folks that kind of, hey, Scott's live. Let's go check this out and see what's going on. But if you watch this later, type in your comments what kind of weather you're having where you are around the world. And but very soon, very, very soon, we'll have our blustery weather hit here. Last year, I think we had a total of almost 10 inches of snow. And Susie and I were told when we were first looking at Kentucky, southeastern Kentucky, that their average is about an inch a year. Well, they went about 10 times that amount last year. So we'll have to wait and see what kind of weather we get this year up here in the mountains. Again, if you don't know it, Susie and I live up in an area in southeastern Kentucky where we are at the same altitude as the Empire State Building. So if anyone wants to Google what is the height of the Empire State Building, that's the height that we're at. So any of our friends that are over in France, we've got a lot of people that follow our work from France. We are at an altitude actually higher than your Eiffel Tower. We're actually higher than the Eiffel Tower in France and almost as high as the Sears Tower in Chicago, Illinois. We've got a lot of friends from Illinois that follow our work as well. As a matter of fact, we have 2 machines that have come through the workshop recently, and we've got another one right now over here that is from Illinois as well. This FOF, where is it? Am I touching it? This FOF 130 is also from Illinois, was shipped to Susie and I up here in Kentucky. And I've got it on the workbench because I'm starting to look at that machine now. And then we've got another machine over here that I'm really starting to dig into from Louisiana. So if you didn't know it, if you're just starting to follow us and get to know the Cow Country family, we get machines from around the world, from around the U.S. All the time. And it's such a privilege and an honor to meet these folks and to get acquainted with them and to get acquainted with their sewing machines and their shared love of vintage sewing machines and also contemporary sewing machines and also industrial sewing machines and commercial sewing machines. A sewing machine is a sewing machine. And if it's troubled, Susie and I are going to do our best to step into the gap and to give it greatness back again. All right, let me ring the bell. And I'll get this machine turned around after I put a little bit of music on, and we'll see if we can get going while we still have internet. Yeah. Let's see. I was looking for more Italian music. I think I have some. All right, I'm going to pause the music real quick. And again, if you don't know much about the Necchi sewing machine brand, they've got so many great machines out there. I've had a chance to service a number of them. This is actually the first Necchi model NE30 that I've ever had. And the issues it was having when it came into the workshop, Cindy was having a lot of difficulty feeding material underneath the presser foot and over the feed dogs. I made some adjustment to the feed dogs. I couldn't do a whole lot with the presser foot because a lot of these machines, not just made by Necchi, but made by Singer, made by Husqvarna, they all decided to move to a universal presser foot type system. And what that means is there's a spring in that well, just like any other presser foot well, but it's designed to react to the amount of pressure that's being pushed up by the thickness of the material. That's the theory anyway. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So, I did as much as I could. I did lubricate and clean the machine thoroughly. It was also really quite dirty. And again, made some adjustments to the feed dogs, getting some really good results now. I know Cindy's going to be excited. And also, like I said in the earlier live stream, when I was presenting all the Guggenheim scissors and shears and helping out Stephen from Guggenheim, kind of telling people how much we love their product, I ended up mentioning that Cindy is going in for surgery on Monday. So keep her in your thoughts if you would. Really a sweet gal. I met she and her husband when they dropped this machine off to us in Middlesboro. And she's getting something implanted into her back to stimulate, almost like a pacemaker, but it stimulates or it sends a shock into the spine to help her with her back and leg issues. So I don't know if anyone else has ever had that surgery. I thought it was like an inpatient surgery, but lo and behold, with insurance and the way things go, and that really was Susie's expertise when she was working back in hospitals in the day. People like to get people to an outpatient as quickly as possible. So this is an outpatient procedure where you get surgery and you're out of the hospital the very same day. So hopefully they do everything right and it helps her and she can enjoy life more with less pain and more mobility. At any rate, blah, 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 blah. So let me jump into this machine. I think what we'll start with, since this Necchi sewing machine company has Italian roots, I'm going to start with Italian leather. I've sewn this a lot on this channel. It's really a lovely, lovely material to sew. We're going to start with one layer, and then I'm going to bump it up to 2 layers. Now, some of you may be wondering, it's a contemporary Necchi machine. What size motor do you think this machine has? What size motor? So if anyone wants to throw some guesses at that, type into the live stream, the live chat, what size motor does this Necchi model NE30 have? And you could probably Google Necchi NE30 and find out what kind of motor it has. But if you want to just guess, that's fine too. So I'll do one layer. I'll lay down a straight stitch on it, and then we'll bump it up to 2 layers. I might even do a decorative stitch on this. There's quite a few stitches built into this Necchi NE30. But let's start with a straight, and then we'll go from there. Okay? All right, here we go. And give a listen. For a contemporary machine, plastic exterior, they still do a decent job on building a machine like this. They really do. They still do a decent job. Susie nailed it. Susie nailed it. Oh my goodness. Good job. 100 watts. I don't know how many watts it is. That's a good question. Our friend typed in there 100 watts. What would 100 watts be in amperage? I don't know. There's got to be a way to convert it, right? There's got to be a way to convert watts into amps, right? I think there is. But at any rate, this machine does have, both of you had great guesses. And Susie happened to nail it. She happened to guess right. This Necchi model NE30 has a 0.6 amp motor. Now, to give you an idea, put that into perspective, that's the same size motor that is on a Singer 1591 with that potted motor. That's the same size motor that is on a Singer 201-2 that has a potted motor, the Rolls Royce of Singer sewing machines. So it's a fairly robust motor, 0.6 amps. So we shouldn't have any trouble, hopefully, going through any of these sew-offs this evening. Hopefully not. Yeah. All right, here we go. Let me see if we can zip down this Italian leather for this machine that has Italian roots. All right, I'm just going to double check. I've got it. Yep, I've got it on. And I was going to show you the little screen on this sewing machine. But guess what? It's an LED screen. And when you try to show LED on a camera, it goes crazy. Let me show you. You can barely read that it says 0.1, right? I'll do my best to show it to you anyway, but it's goofy. So 0.01, it means that we're on stitch 1, which is a straight stitch with a center needle position. These are some of the stitches we have right here. And then what you can do on this NE30 is you can go into that stitch. You can hit this button right here, and you can see what is the preset setting for a zigzag. Right now it's 3.5. That's what they set at the factory. You can hit it again, and you can see the preset for a straight stitch is 2.2. You kind of can see that. If you're getting dizzy, I apologize. But we're going to go a little bit longer than I'm going to bump it up to 4. And then I'll go back to our 1 setting again. I just want to make sure it stayed. Yep. And we're going to stitch off. It's not the longest stitch that this NE30 will do, but it's pretty long. So we'll see if we can zip down and lay down a straight stitch. I'll show that to you, and then we'll jump into that second layer. Maybe we'll lay down a zigzag. All right, here we go. The other cool thing about this NE30, I got to brag about it a little bit, is like a lot of the contemporary machines, they added that technology where you can end in the needle down position or the needle up position. I've got it set right now to end in the needle up position, which also then takes that take-up arm all the way to the highest position. I harp on that all the time. Before you start sewing, make sure your take-up arm, which is right up here, make sure your take-up arm is at the highest position so that you can launch without any resistance. With this setting on here, it takes me automatically to that highest position, which is really, really cool. So let me clip these. I'll show this first sew off to you on this Italian leather, and then we'll look at sewing 2 layers of it on this NE Model 30. So this is a single layer of Italian leather. See if we can take a peek at that. There we go. The camera's being pretty nice today. You look at it like this too. Some real nice looking stitches. And again, we all have our biases as vintage people that love vintage sewing machines, about more contemporary machines, but you know what? They do a pretty good job. They truly do. They're not built as well as the vintage ones, but they do a decent job from a stitch quality standpoint. So a real good looking top stitch on this single layer of Italian leather. If I turn it over, see if I can get real close so you can see this lock stitch. We can see how our tension is doing. Looks like we have a pretty decent lock stitch as well. I see a couple of the stitches might have just a slight little tilt to them. If you ever see that on your lock stitch on the back of the material, a slight tilt to the stitch, that means that your upper tension might be insufficient. You might have to bump your upper tension up on your sewing machine. But all in all, I'm looking and seeing a really good looking lock stitch as well through this Italian leather. And we're not sewing with a leather needle. We're sewing with a universal needle, size 90-14. So for sewing with a universal needle that has kind of a rounded point, it doesn't have that cutting edge like a leather needle, we're getting a real good result from this Italian leather sew off. Now let's double it up and see if this NE30 can handle twice as much Italian leather. So I'm going to add this second layer to it now. I'll add that on the back, and I'll put it with the top side facing out. That way we can see that lock stitch a lot more clearly than we could on this one. It's not bad though. Maybe I'll face it the same way. Then we're doing apples and apples. So right now with these 2 layers of Italian leather, you can see the thickness that we're going to attempt to sew off. It's probably right around 7 ounces of leather. 7 ounces of leather. So it's not as thick as a belt, but it's pretty doggone close. And there are other people that would have a more contemporary machine like this that would never attempt to sew leather at all because they're concerned that the machine's going to get broken. But I'm confident enough in the work that I've done in this machine, and after going through it thoroughly, I wouldn't go much heavier than this on this machine, but I think it'll get the job done well. So let me slide that underneath the presser foot. And again, if you just joined us, this particular machine has a universal presser foot system, which means it's supposed to adjust automatically depending on what you're sewing on. If you're sewing silk or satin, it'll lighten up its push against that material, driving it lighter into those feed dogs. If you're sewing something like this Italian leather, it's going to be pushing harder in theory against that leather so you get even feed and you don't lose the stitch quality. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch over to a zigzag. We'll see if we can lay down a zigzag on these 2 layers of Italian leather. Again, about 7 ounces. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. Again, it's an LED screen, so you're not going crazy. If the screen looks really weird, if it looks like it's blinking, it's not really blinking, but the camera has trouble with LED. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to hit this button right here that allows you to change the settings. So I'm going to hit that. Right now we're at a 3.5 as far as stitch width. Let's see how far we can go up. All the way up to 7. We're not going to go quite that high. We're going to go up to, why don't we go up to 4.5? We'll stop at 4.5. And then the straight stitch, we'll leave it at 4. That's good. So hopefully now, actually, no, that probably won't work in theory. I don't think that'll work in theory. Let me actually go to the actual zigzag, which is stitch number 8. We'll actually go to the zigzag. I think I can bypass it up here, but I'll play it safe and we'll just go to stitch 8, which is a zigzag. All right, what's the default on that? Default's going to be 5. We'll leave it at 5. That's fine. Okay, so let's try a zigzag. We'll actually use the default button instead of trying to bypass it. Let me see if I can get a little bit closer to this so you can look straight down on this as it's sewing. There we go. Okay, so we're trying now 2 layers of Italian leather. Right now my stitch, my upper tension rather, right now my upper tension is at right about 4.5. I think I'm going to play it safe and just bump it up to 5 just to get us a little bit of a benefit going through that much leather. Hopefully that's enough, but if it isn't, we'll know how to adjust it if we decide to sew leather on that again. All right, let me get all the way over here. There we go. You got a real good view now of the leather, the Italian leather. We already did the straight stitch. Now we're going to try a zigzag stitch through 2 layers. All right, keep your fingers crossed. Here we go. I got to get my foot on the presser foot though. There we go. I intentionally took my hands off of the leather and allowed the feed dogs and the presser foot to feed that. And you know what? In that instance, it did a really good job. It fed it true and straight, and it did a real nice job. And we got a good looking zigzag on there as well. I'll see if I can clip this and we'll take a closer look at it through 2 layers of Italian leather. I'll tell you one thing, there are some vintage machines that come into the workshop that would not be able to do this sew off. So that's kudos to this much more contemporary machine. So there's our zigzag, there's our straight stitch, 2 layers of Italian leather. Kind of go across, let you look at it. Yeah, good looking zigzag. Now, hopefully when we adjusted that upper tension up just a little bit, hopefully we maintained a good looking lock stitch for that zigzag as well. Let's turn it over and see what we got. Yeah, I would say all in all, it's a good looking lock stitch. Let me pull this back a little bit, give you a look at it. Yeah, it turned out really good. I'm glad we bumped it up a little bit before we sewed that. You see the nap of that leather, that Italian leather kind of makes it disappear, doesn't it? When you get down to the end here, kind of pull it back and then you can start to see those beautiful stitches popping through. Nice looking stitching. So we all, like I said, we have our biases about more contemporary machines, but you sometimes come across that machine that just really kind of impresses you a little bit. That's been true of this Necchi model NE30. It really has done an excellent job off camera and now on camera. It's actually doing an excellent job and laying down some really good looking stitching through quite a bit of leather. Again, looking through the end of it, probably about almost 7 ounces of leather. So I'll throw this to the side and we'll jump into some more sew offs. We'll see if we can do some of those fancy stitches on here as well that that they're just pretty to put on a bag or to put on some other project that you're working on, some other project. So the setup on this machine, and I see that Susie is already touching on that, which I'm grateful for. The setup on this machine again is that we've got a spool of dual duty XP thread on here, 250 yards, I believe it is. It's going to be this thread right here. It's a great all-purpose thread. You can not only use it on sewing machines, but if you're into hand sewing, you can also use this XP thread for hand sewing as well. Sometimes you got to go to that other brand and they have specific threads for hand sewing. Well, Coates and Clark came out with a thread that is machine usable, or you can use for hand sewing, either one. I love it. It does an excellent job. And then we've got our standby, excuse me, we've got our standby Schmetz universal needle. We're going to be sewing other leather as well. We're going to be sewing other leather, and you can see that this particular one doesn't have a cutting point. It's got a slightly rounded point. So really what we're doing with the leather is we're kind of punching through it with the needle. We're not really cutting through it like you would with a leather needle. The anatomy on a leather needle on the point is considerably different than a universal needle like this. I got to get it on screen. Otherwise you're saying, what's he showing us? And I'm a big fan and a big supporter of Schmetz needles. I'm not sure what needles you might use, but if you've never tried a Schmetz needle, I would encourage you to try it. You might never go back to that other needle again. You might never go back. All right, I'm going to get a drink of tea. It's later in the evening here in Kentucky. We're a little bit after 7 o'clock, and Susie and I haven't even had dinner yet. We're going to have a late dinner tonight, so yeah, we'll kind of plug through this live stream. And I'm delighted that we've got a number of people that have popped in. They saw we were online and they came to join us. And it's always such a privilege and an honor, especially to meet new folks. And if you're in the shadows right now and you're kind of watching, but you haven't stepped out into the live chat yet to introduce yourself, let me encourage you to do that. I promise we don't bite. We don't bite. And we're so honored that you're here. And hopefully you'll decide to jump into the live chat and introduce yourself. Share a little bit about where you're from and what kind of sewing machines you use, what kind of sewing you do. And yeah, that would be super cool. We would be super honored to have you do that when you're ready. No pushing, just an invitation. All right, I'm going to pause this. I'm going to pause that Italian style music. And I didn't do something that I should have done, and that is walk you around this machine a little bit. I'll walk you around this machine a little bit. I won't take the bobbin out, but I'll show you the bobbin. It's a drop-in style bobbin. Very, very convenient to drop it in. When you drop it in, you want to make sure you drop it in so that when it's turning, as you can see, it's turning counterclockwise. It's turning counterclockwise. So make sure when you drop it in that you get that counterclockwise verification. You can take the whole plate off. You just remove one screw right there. You remove that one screw. You can take the whole plate off, and then you can get in there and do a little bit more detailed oiling and a little bit more detailed cleaning. It does have an auto threader on it, and I believe it also has, it's got an auto button holder that you can pull down. There's a little tab thing you can pull down, and then it'll do an auto buttonhole for you. And if you want to service this machine a little bit more, if you're really ambitious, you can always pull this little plug out here, and you can get into the faceplate area and service the components that are in the faceplate area as well. You've got a speed adjustment here, so you can preset the speed of the machine. I've got it kind of on the lower end right now, low to mid range, but if you push it all the way over to the right, this baby will race like a cheetah. So it's got that speed adjustment right on the front, right front and center. It makes it very, very convenient. Tension adjustment right here. And down here, we've got some other fun little buttons to play with. I'm trying to look at my laptop screen at the same time here. This is going to be, let me get down on, I'm actually going to get down on the floor. I've got a real high workbench here. So this is going to be your needle up, needle down right here. If you push it, when you're done sewing, it's either going to end with the needle in the down position, where if you're piecing together material, it might make it a little bit more convenient to have that needle stay in the material. Or you can push it the other way like I have it right now, so that when you get done sewing, that needle will automatically. It also has an end phase. An end phase, in other words, when you sew through, it's going to lock off that stitch if you hit this middle button. This middle button right here is going to give you that lock off feature, so you won't have to back tack, and you'll be confident that that stitch that stitch line is secure. So you can hit that, and it'll do an automatic back tack when it finishes sewing that stitch line. And then finally, you've got reverse right here. You basically have three buttons. You've got the needle up, needle down. You've got the end series, so that you can back tack that stitch line and make sure it's tied off properly. And then you've got reverse right here. Okay, so nice little thing. And then you also have a start stop button as well on top of that. So you could also potentially, with this machine, you could sew without a foot controller by using the start stop button. We've seen that on some of the other more contemporary machines as well. All right, let me get back off the concrete floor. Ouch! All right, threading the machine is real straightforward. You come off the top. Here we're feeding the thread horizontally. There was a lot of debate on this. Is feeding it horizontally better? Is it feeding it vertically better? I think the jury's still out on that. But on a lot of the machines, you'll see that they've gone horizontal. So you come from here. Why don't we talk about winding a bobbin first? If you're winding a bobbin, you'll come from here, around here, this tensioner, and then back to your bobbin mounting point right here. And then you simply engage it. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this crazy screen, but when I engage it, it's going to change the image on the screen. See that? It changes it to SP, which tells you that you're in the bobbin winding mode right now. And then you push it back, and it goes back to the stitch selection that you have. And if you've never done it on your sewing machine, most sewing machines will have something like this. This controls how full that bobbin can get filled. You simply loosen this screw. If you rotate it in towards the bobbin, you're not going to fill it as full. If you rotate it out, you can fill that bobbin a lot fuller. Get a nice full bobbin so you can sew longer without having to stop. So if you've never adjusted that on one of your machines, take a look. You're going to have something like this. All of the Singers have it. Most of the German machines have something similar to this. It's either going to be here or it's going to be on the front of the machine. And then you can make that adjustment so that you've got more flexibility. This one's also going to have an auto clutch disengagement. So when you push that over, like I showed you, it's going to automatically disengage the clutch on this model NE30, which is nice. I mean, one less thing to do, right? Yeah, one less thing to do. And these are all the stitches. I'll cover the threading in just a second. These are all the stitches that are on Cindy's machine. There's quite a big selection of them. We're not going to be doing all of them, but we'll do some of them. They've got some that will allow you to preset the needle position, straight needle position, or I should say a center needle position, offset it to the left. You've got a variety of stitches that you can choose, 3-point zigzag, blind hems, all these decorative stitches, built-in buttonholes as well. Hopefully I've got the camera angled right. Yeah, sort of. And then some really fancy stitches down here. We'll sew some of these as well. But a neat, really a nice little machine that Necchi came up with. And I shouldn't say really Necchi. It is Necchi, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the contemporary companies, they've been bought out. They've been bought out by companies like Janome. And now these machines are being made in Thailand. They're being made in Vietnam. They're being made in other places like that. And hopefully they're being vigilant about the quality standards. You know what I mean? That's the big complaint with us vintage diehards is the quality is absent. There's some machines that some machine makers are making. Quite honestly, they're just making them like disposable machines. And that's never a good thing, is it? Because you spend several $100s anyway, and then you got a machine that doesn't last. Free arm, easy to access. You just pull this off right here, and then you've got a free arm. It's a rather bulky free arm, so you'd be limited on what you could do. Certainly not, children's clothing would be nearly impossible on this machine, to be truthful. But there's other types of free arm type activities you could do with something this wide. It's quite wide. I think I have my tape measure still in my pocket. Oh, I took it out. Maybe I have another tape measure. I was going to give you an idea of how wide this is. Oh, what did I do with all my tape measures? Well, anyway, it's wide. Maybe I'll use a Q-tip to show you how wide it is. This is a standard Q-tip. It's about as wide as a Q-tip. So, yeah, that's the big attraction for a lot of people looking at some of the vintage Italian machines and also the vintage Swedish machines, especially the Husqvarnas, have very, very small free arms, which allows you to do a lot of sewing even on petite or children's clothing, which is a good thing. All right, the threading of this machine, I'll cover that real quick just to cover that as well. I showed you bobbin winding already. For threading, you come over the top and then you go behind. Let me straighten the camera out. You go behind this thread point right here and you pull the thread in and kind of lock it in. There's a little clip in there that holds that thread securely. And then you'll drop down through this track right here, right past the upper tension controller. You'll drop down here past all these fancy little buttons. And you'll make this turn to the left right there. You make this turn to the left and come back up. And then you'll thread it through the take-up arm. And you'll drop down through that same slat again, all the way down to here. And you've got a thread point right here. It's kind of hard to see it. You got a thread point right there. I'm trying to see my laptop screen. I think I'm showing it. You got a thread point right there. And then you got another thread point right above the needle right there, where you have to snap that thread in. I think I'm showing it to you. And then you'll thread this needle, this Schmetz 9014 needle, you thread it from front to back. Okay? You'll thread it from front to back. And you'll be in really good shape to enjoy some good sewing with this more contemporary Necchi sewing machine. All right, let me get the camera adjusted back. We'll do some more sewing on this machine now. I haven't sewn this in a long time. This is protected full grain leather. Protected full grain leather is, I think Susie told me it's called airline leather as well. It's incredibly durable leather. It doesn't break down. It's used on airplane seats. It's used on some car seats as well, because it has a chemical treatment to it that protects the leather, gives it more durability, and it also protects it from stains. So if somebody spills something on this, it's not going to go in. It's not going to be as porous. It's going to have a barrier on it, almost like a Scotch guard, kind of like a Scotch guard, like was the big movement. If any of you ever had furniture back in the day that was Scotch guarded, that was like the big thing. All your neighbors wanted to know when they came over. Hey, is your furniture Scotch guarded? We got our kids with us. Is your furniture Scotch guarded? We brought our dog along. So really a neat leather. But, as soon as you add chemical treatments to leather, it makes that piercing factor even higher. It makes it more difficult to get through it because it's got that barrier cover on it. You can't see it, but it's there. So we're going to put this underneath that presser foot with that universal adjustment that's built into it. And we're going to choose one of the fancier stitches to see if we can get through this protected full grain leather with a fancier stitch. What am I going to choose over here? I really like stitch number 30. Stitch number 30. There it is. Stitch number 30. It's like a star type thing, like a starburst. And with Veterans Day coming up this week, and if any of you like me are veterans, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. I don't care if you were part of a U.S. Military or if you're with a military group somewhere else in the world. Service is service to your country. So thank you for doing that. So I think we'll do this one. So I just go up here. And again, this is an LED light, so you're not losing your mind if it looks like it's flashing. And now I simply go all the way up to stitch number 30. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And whether it's on this machine or any machine, whenever you're adjusting your stitch selector to go to a different stitch, always, always, always make sure that your needle is clear of the material. Because as we were changing this, you couldn't see it. But if I go back to the needle and I hit this button and kind of go back the other way, you're going to see that needle doing a little dance. See that? So you can imagine if that's down in your material, you're going to bend your needle. You're going to bend your needle and you're going to start sewing and you're going to hit the throat plate. Susie and I recently had a couple of machines in here where it looked like they had shot the throat plate with a shotgun. It was that damaged. It was really, really bad. And that requires a lot of restorative care. I have to use a lot of tools to try to get those barbs of the metal off of the throat plate. If you've got needle strikes on your throat plate, you can remove that throat plate cover and use a real fine grit sandpaper. I would say at least 1,000 grit sandpaper. If you've got a straight stitch, it's a booger to try to get through there. But if you got a wider throat plate, say if your machine does zigzag or other sewing, you can fold that 1,000 grit sandpaper real small and then work it up and down until you get that throat plate smooth again. If you decide not to do that, you're going to run into sewing problems because as that thread is fed up from the bobbin and the bobbin case, it's going to catch on those metal barbs and it's going to create a lot of headaches for you. So take a moment if you've had the misfortune of having the bad habit of pulling or pushing material and your needle is broken because it's hit the throat plate, you'll want to examine that and try to get rid of those rough spots so you don't have sewing issues, okay? All right, let's try this. We're going to try stitch number 30 down this protected full grain leather. All right, here we go. Let me actually bring the camera down there so you can see it closer up. This is fun. All right. Hold on. I'm doing this one-handed, folks. I'm doing this one-handed. You'll notice as well during the sewing process that not only is the needle moving, but the feed dogs are executing very sharp moves. If you didn't know it, that's called tri-motion. Tri-motion is where the machine will manipulate the feed dogs to generate a decorative or ornamental or utility stitch. So watch the material movement. It's flipping it back and forth rather rapidly. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Notice again, it stops in the up position. On this machine, if you hit that button one more time, it'll end with the needle in the down position. So really, again, a nice feature that a vintage machine would not be able to offer. So we can embrace the newer machines, but still be in love with the vintage machines, right? Don't you agree? And I know a lot of our friends have vintage and they have contemporary machines in their collection. That's a very common occurrence where you'll use certain machines for certain projects, right? Or certain parts of the project. You'll use that contemporary machine for generating stitching like this. And then you'll go back to that vintage machine to generate other stitching. And yeah, it's just a lovely, lovely stitch. This particular one, this is stitch number 30 again on this model NE30 that belongs to Cindy. Aren't those beautiful? Aren't those beautiful? Yeah. Lovely, lovely stitching. And I have it on that back tack feature right now. So you'll notice before it launches into the pattern, it will lock that stitch on this end over here. That's why it's there. I probably could take that off, but I've been operating it like that the whole way. So, but some beautiful top stitching. Let's turn it over and look at the lock stitching. See if our upper tension did a good job, and it did. Some beautiful lock stitching on this protected full grain leather. And again, if you joined us a little bit late, protected full grain leather is chemically treated so that it's more durable, and it also is stain resistant. I'll never say stain proof because you know what? Certain things, if they get on that material, they're just going to mess it up, aren't they? They're just going to mess it up. But it's a lovely, lovely stitch. And leather is just, I'm in love with leather. I just am. Susie will come into the workshop sometimes and I'll be sniffing leather. I think I need help. But if any of the rest of you walk into a leather store with leather jackets and everything else, and you just like breathing it in like potpourri, then thank goodness I'm not alone. I'm not alone. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful stitching by this NE30. And again, protected full grain leather. It's not an easy leather to sew through because of that chemical treatment. But this machine did an excellent job. All right. We clip that. We'll throw this off to the side. So if you're joining us a little bit late, that's okay. We've already done Italian leather. We've done protected full grain leather now with this Necchi, I'll say Italian roots. This Necchi company that has Italian roots, again, was founded in 1919, right? So it's been around. Somebody do the math. I'm not good with math. How, if Necchi, if we still consider Necchi in business, because they're still producing machines, even though they're by, I believe Necchi is owned by Janome now. So even though they're owned by a Japanese machine company, they're still making it under the Necchi brand. So if they were founded in 1919, how long have they been in business? How long has Necchi, the identity of Necchi, been in business? How long have they been in business if they were founded in 1919 by that Italian gentleman? What was his name? Vittoria from Pavia, Italy. Yeah, 1919. Right after he got done serving in World War I. So on Veterans Day, we can also remember the founder of the Necchi Sewing Machine Company because he served in World War I. Another veteran, just like the rest of us. That's kind of cool. Yeah, that's totally cool. All right, what do I have now? What else do I have now? I prepared a lot of sew-offs. So I've got this bubblegum material. You guys remember this stuff? You can kind of stretch it. It's almost like got like a rubberized thing to it. See that? I'm entertained easily. So I've got 2 layers of this bubblegum material. I haven't sewn this in a long time. I used to sew it quite often back in Wisconsin, but I haven't sewn it very often in, I've never sewn it in Kentucky. So this will be the first time. But we can go through some of this bubblegum material. It's made to look like leather. Doesn't it look like leather? It almost looks like that protected full grain leather, but it's not. It's not leather at all. You can backside, and that tells the story right away that this is definitely not leather. And whenever you're sewing something that's got a nylon base to it, that always makes it a little bit challenging, doesn't it? I'm going to go for 2 layers right away. I'm going to put 2 layers underneath there. And I talk a lot about hyperextension. On sewing machines that will give you a little bit more added clearance. This one sort of kind of has a hyperextension, but it's so minor that it's not even really worth mentioning. Although I think I just mentioned it, didn't I? But there are some machines, Japanese machines in particular, some of the vintage ones that have a crazy amount of hyperextension. And the way you can tell it is if you move it to the regular position on the presser foot lever, push it up a little bit further and see if that presser foot goes up a sizable amount more. Sometimes you can get an added, believe it or not, you can get an added 10 to 12 millimeters, which can make all the difference for a project. So we'll do this bubblegum material now. And why don't we let me see what we got over here. We'll look at these stitches. Bubblegum material. Let's see here. We could do the 29. It's kind of a bird foot pattern. We can see if we can pull off 29. It's right there. Just go up here and bump it down one. We'll do the bird foot pattern on this one and see how it handles this bubblegum material. It's tricky stuff to sew because of that stretchiness to it. All right, let's lay down this bird foot pattern, as I call it. And I believe this one also is going to have tri-motion. So watch the feed dogs working ferociously to try to move that material around. I'm going to take my hands completely off of it, and we'll test that universal presser foot pressure that Necchi has engineered into this machine. Let's see if it stays straight and it feeds it true. All right, here we go. No hands. Yeah, it did a real good job, didn't it? It did an excellent job of trying to keep that material straight, especially a stretchy material. And here's our bird foot pattern, give you the initial glimpse of it. A real good looking stitch. How would you use a stitch like this if you were doing a project? If you were doing a certain type of project, how would you use a stitch like this if your machine could generate this? What kind of project might you be doing? How would you use it? I'm going to move our thread back. We'll get ready for our next sew off. I'll clip these threads off and let's take a look at this. We went through 2 layers of this. We'll see if it maintained the material feed really, really well. And I wanted Cindy to see that because that was her biggest complaint about this machine when she brought it to Susie and I, is it will not feed the material. It's not feeding anything. It's not feeding it evenly. It's not feeding it true. Well, this is a real tricky material to feed, this bubblegum material, as I call it. And you just witnessed it doing an excellent job of feeding it very, very straight, very, very steady, very, very true, and laying down some gorgeous stitching as well. I don't know what the technical name of this stitch is, but I call it the bird foot stitch. Yeah, it's a bird foot stitch, sort of, kind of. Isn't that a good looking stitch? Yeah, very, very nice. Let's turn it over and see how it did on the backside. Yeah, the upper tension is managing things very, very nicely. Don't you agree? There's our lock stitching. It did a real good job of maintaining the stitch integrity, the spacing, the overall presentation of the stitch. It did an excellent, excellent job. Excellent job. One of our friends just said, and I've got to go through and say hi to everybody. One of our friends in the live chat right now called it a feather stitch. And that makes sense, doesn't it? It kind of looks like a feather, doesn't it? You hold it like this. Yeah, that kind of does look like a feather. Yeah. So whether you call it a bird foot stitch like I do, but y'all know this, I make up stitch names all the time. Whether you call it a bird foot stitch or a feather stitch. Yeah, this Necchi NE30 did a really good job of generating it and maintaining beautiful stitch integrity. Don't you agree? On a material like this that is incredibly stretchy, you got to find the right direction for it. I think it's this direction here. It's like an elastic material almost, isn't it? Yeah, so really good job by this Italian rooted machine. Italian rooted machine is what we'll say. Yeah. So I'll just go through real quick and say hi to some folks. And I'm sure that Susie's done an excellent job, and Jenny as well, I think was in the live chat. It's making folks feel welcome. So I'll say good evening to my lovely wife, Susie, first of all, and good evening to Jenny. Jenny just had a birthday and she said, I turned the big 7-0. Ha ha! So Jenny is the big 7-0. I think age is just a number, don't you? Age doesn't mean anything. I've met people, matter of fact, Susie and I and Tim and Teresa were over by a really cool spot in Kentucky here, It's called Chain Rock. And we can actually see Chain Rock from our deck on the rear of the house. And we went to visit Chain Rock, and there was this gal that came up these steep stairs, having just gone to Chain Rock, which was a half a mile away. Very, very rough terrain to navigate. I mean, rocks and everything. I showed it on this channel. I showed actually my ascent all the way up the rock face and everything. I was holding the video camera with one hand and crawling on my hands and knees up this slippery rock face. And this lady had done the same thing. She came up the stairs. She wasn't winded. She didn't look tired. She wasn't flush. She wasn't sweating. Women don't sweat anyway. They glisten, right? Isn't that true? Women glisten. They don't sweat. Ha ha! But anyway, this lady came up and she just looked as fresh as a daisy. And we started talking with each other. And she said, I'm Sister. And she said her first name. She said, Sister, let's just say Sister Alice. I don't think that's right, but she said her name and she said, I'm Sister Alice. And she was like almost 80 years old. She was 10 years older than Jenny. And she was just like, yeah, I do this all the time. And when Tim and I got back with Rutger after having done basically the same thing, probably slower than the Catholic sister had done it, I think we were sweaty. I think we were flush. I think we were tired. I think we were ready for a Diet Coke. Yeah. So age doesn't mean a thing. If you stay active, you stay busy. If you have a vivacious, busy day, you get up every day and you're excited. You're like, yeah, baby. And you jump into it, whether you're 60, 70, 80, 90, or 100, you can still have a wild, fun life, right? Don't you agree? A wild, fun life. Okay, so hi to Jenny as well, who just turned a very young 70 years old. Who else do we have? And we also have AstraZeneca 7783. AstraZeneca 7783. Welcome to you. Great to have you here. Who else? My Adventures 6227. That's fun. And this friend of ours is from California. I have had a chance to touch so many machines from California, including that FOF 1222E, I believe it was, that went back to Joelle and her mom out in Bakersfield, California. So if our friend My Adventures 6227 knows where Bakersfield, California is, we've serviced machines there. We've serviced machines in Southern California, in Las Vegas, California, all over California. I love California. What a great state. What a great state. Let's see, who else do we have? And that's about it. That's it as far as folks that are in the live chat. I know we've had a number of people kind of pop in and pop out. It's pretty late, isn't it? It's going on 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7 o'clock Central time. I won't even try to go on the Mountain time and West Coast time and all that. I'll get totally confused. It's a lot earlier there as you go west, isn't it? But you know what? It's late nonetheless. And I'm grateful for each and every one of you that's taking your valuable time in the evening to join us, whether you can stay or not, whether you have to pop in and pop away or whatever you have to do. We get a chance to celebrate this great contemporary Necchi model NE30 that belongs to Cindy. And Cindy is, I'm forgetting if she's from Tennessee or Kentucky. But at any rate, she's from this neck of the woods out here. So, yeah. All right, let me jump into the next show-off. And we will Riverside County. Riverside. Riverside is in California, isn't it? I think it's in California. Riverside, I've heard that before. Is that Southern California or Central? It's not near Vista, is it? Or San Jose, California? I have no idea where Riverside County is. That California, right? Whoever that is, My Adventures 6227. Tell us where that is in California. You're in Southern California. Yes, in Southern California. Okay, Southern California. Cool. Yeah. We for a while there, we get advertisers on this YouTube channel that will run their ads on this channel. And I had run a number of Singer 201-2s across the workbench. And all of a sudden, one time, as one of the videos was starting, we were doing premieres back then, videos. We've done some of those here, but we weren't doing any, pretty much, we weren't doing any live streams until recently in the last couple of years. And all of a sudden, a commercial pops up, and it is Beverly Hills Rolls-Royce dealership advertising their fancy cars on our little Cow Country channel. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? But that was really cool. I don't know if Susie was part of us then, but a lot of you will remember that because I got so excited. I grabbed my phone and I recorded the commercial, not knowing if they would ever advertise on our channel again. Maybe they made a mistake or something, but I kept mentioning Rolls-Royce's Singers. So they're like, yeah, we'll advertise there. But I've never been to Beverly Hills. I'm guessing some of our friends that live in Southern California have probably gone to Beverly Hills many times. And we've all seen the movies, showing those super huge houses there, all the big stars that live there and all the other folks that live there. And I wouldn't mind visiting there someday. I mean, I know it's a beautiful place and the weather is so lovely. So if you live in Southern California, when we start to get our snow and our cold weather here in Kentucky, you can say, ha ha, ha ha. Why not? Why not? Southern California is lovely, isn't it? Yeah, it is. All right, let's do another sew off here. And why don't we move to the light side? I sewed this on the last machine that belongs to Emma in Florida. As a matter of fact, we're getting ready to pack up that machine, that Elna Lotus SP. If you didn't see that machine, you got to check it out. That little Lotus machine, which I compared to a featherweight in the live stream, actually has a bigger motor than this NE Model 30 Necchi machine. Actually a bigger motor. It has 0.75 amp motor on that little machine. If you compare it to some of these other machines that I've got on the workbench right now, like this FOF 130, this FOF 130 is usually going to come with a 1.3 amp or a 1.1 amp, a little bit bigger than some of the other machines. You got this 401A right over here. That's out of Louisiana. And that has a 0.9 amp motor in it. So when you get into the 0.6, 0.75 amp motors, those are pretty robust motors. But I had sewn some of this velvet ribbon material on that Elna machine as well. It's got that slippery side on the back. See that sheen on it? And it's got this velvet surface on it. As we get closer to Christmas and the holidays, everyone, as soon as you see velvet, am I the only one? As soon as you see Elvis, as soon as you see velvet, I think of Christmas. I think of Christmas trees. I think of decorations for Christmas and the holidays. Don't you? I mean, I just do. But we're going to try to sew some of this slippery velvet now. We'll see how that universal presser foot does with this material. It's going to be probably about as challenging as that bubblegum material, but we'll give it a go. We're going to go through 2 layers of it. It's kind of hard to keep this stuff together. Maybe I should use some of my little clips. I actually pulled them out anticipating this. I'll grab some of these little clips that I don't remember. Susie, was it Paula Noel that gave us these clips? These little clips things? I think it was Paula Noel from oh God, I'm totally blanking. She's from Florida. No, she's not from Florida. Where's Paula from? Paula's one of our moderators. I haven't seen her for a while. She's been tied up doing other things, but I think she gave us these little clips. I think she gave us some of these little clips. She kind of holds the material together. I'm embarrassed. I should know where Paula's from. I mailed her stuff. I mailed her machines back to her. She actually sent some machines to the workshop back in Wisconsin. One of them was a 201-2, the Rolls-Royce of Singers. Well, it'll come to mind. It's been a long day, and we had that frustration of the internet going wacky this morning. And now we're doing a late live stream to showcase Cindy's Necchi NE30. I should know where Paula is from. Doggone it. Oh, maybe if I do a big stretch, my brain will activate. Wait a second. Doing a big stretch, big stretch. Oh, any rate, Paul, I think, is the one that gave us these little clips. So now I need to pick what stitch we're going to lay down on this velvet material. What stitch should I do on this velvet material? Should I do something super fancy and really risk it? Maybe I can lay down a 3-point zigzag and then lay down a type of blind hem stitch, number 10. Or I could totally go crazy and do one of these super crazy fancy ones. I don't know if we can pull that off or not. Maybe. Could try doing number 12. That would be a challenge. Number 12 would be a major challenge on this velvet material. What do you think? Should we try number 12, this one right here? Where's my finger? There it is. Try number 12 on here. Why don't we? Why don't we try number 12? We'll go up here. We're on 29 right now. We'll go all the way down to 12. And again, when you're changing your stitch selector, whether it's an electronic machine like this or a vintage machine, make sure your needle is clear of the material. What number was that? I went too far. Number 12. There we go. And I know you're looking at the screen right now. It's going, but it says 12. It really does. All right, let's try this number 12 stitch on this velvet ribbon style material. And we'll see if that universal feed, that universal presser foot pressure, can manage something like this. I don't know if it can. We'll see. All right, here we go. And I'll run it a little bit slower, kind of give it a chance to succeed here. All right, I better take one of these clips off here. All right, I'm going to take my hands off the material. Hands free. Let me take this off too. Yeah, we're going off kilter a little bit. I better adjust it a little bit. Come on, go back there, buddy. Go back there. All right. And again, it ends with that needle up position because I have the button pushed in right now. Yeah, I think overall it did a really good job on this velvety material. Incredibly slippery stuff. Very, very sheer. And that's a very complex stitch. It's a very, very complex stitch on this machine that it's not only manipulating the needle very rapidly, but it's also manipulating the feed dogs with that tri motion. So we'll see what we think of the stitching for this machine on such a difficult, so often on a difficult material. So there's our top stitching. Kind of go across there and take a look at that. Once the camera decides to focus, it doesn't like certain colors. Certain colors it just doesn't like. I think green is one of them. There we go, finally. You can see the intricacy and complexity of that stitch on a slippery velvet material, and it did a real good job of executing it all in all. But I would say at the top of that stitch pattern, I see a little bit of looseness, which tells me that we would have to, if we were going to be sewing this stitch pattern on velvet all day long, if we were going to be sewing this stitch pattern on velvet all day long, we would want to back off. Well, let me throw it to the audience. If we were sewing a stitch pattern like this and we felt like the top stitching was just a little bit too loose at the top of the stitch pattern there where it links that stitch together, what adjustment would you make to the upper tension? What adjustment would you make to the upper tension to try to tighten up that top stitch a little bit without having to go down into the bobbin case? What would you do to the upper tension? It looks a little droopy on the top of there. What would we do to tighten that up? Let's look at that lock stitch while you're answering that. Here's our lock stitch on the back of this velvet ribbon type material. And you can see there we don't have as much of that droopiness, do we? we don't have quite as much of that droopiness. It looks a little bit more of a tight stitch pattern, doesn't it? And Susie is, I'm reading Susie's remark in the live chat. Susie's absolutely right. If you're trying to tighten up that, excuse me, if you're trying to tighten up that top stitch, you're going to back off the upper tension so that that bobbin case can pull down harder. Because I explain this in almost all the live streams, and I still find people that don't understand the concept or never heard it before. They've never heard it before. As this material is feeding underneath that universal presser foot like this, that upper tension is pulling up, that bobbin case down below is pulling down, and that's what determines that epic tug of war, between the upper tension pulling up and the bobbin case pulling down. Depending on how that balance is set, is going to determine what kind of stitch quality you get. Whether that linking across the top of the stitch pattern is a little bit loose looking, or whether that stitch pattern on the bottom is maybe a little bit too taut. And I've shown you before in other live streams where if you have too much upper tension, it actually will compress that stitching on the bottom so that the stitching on the bottom will be smaller in scale to the top of the stitching, right? So remember that tug of war when you're trying to adjust tension. If you're loose on the top, you need to reduce the upper tension. If you're loose on the bottom, you need to increase the upper tension to pull up harder to define that stitching more. But all in all, we got a very good result. I always look at things critically, right? I always look at things critically, knowing that we can always make it better, as good as it might be. But all in all, we did an excellent job laying down some gorgeous ornamental style stitching on a very tricky material. This velvet material is not an easy material to sew, especially with a sewing machine that has a universal presser foot adjuster built into it, and you don't have any self-determination of adjusting that presser foot pressure to either lighten up or to increase depending on the materials you're sewing. So we got some really good results with this Necchi model NE30. Model NE30. Yeah. All right, let me put on a little bit of music. You can hear my voice is kind of scratchy. Put on a little bit more music and I'll get a quick drink of tea. If you're still in the shadows and you haven't introduced yourself, step out and say hi. Step out and say hi. No one's going to bite you. And that way you can feel like you're a part of the process, a part of the process. All right, I'm going to pause the music, keep us moving forward so we can, Susie and I can have dinner, doggone it. I don't know if anyone else watching from the East Coast or will watch this later on from the East Coast, but generally people have dinner by 8 o'clock Eastern time. And we haven't done that yet. So we're going to have some soup or something like that. I'm not sure what Susie has planned, but we'll have something to eat after we get done with this live stream. And again, I'm grateful. I didn't announce this. I didn't promote this live stream on Facebook or anywhere else. And a number of people joined us this morning when we had the internet issues. We were able to get through presenting the Guggenheim shears to help out Stephen from Guggenheim, let people know how much we love their product. And we don't get paid for that. We just do it because we love the product. And we wanted people to know about Guggenheim. If you've never seen them before, I'll just show you real quick. This is their, is it their 9-inch shears? I think it's their 9-inch shears. And they're so effective at cutting things. When I was preparing these sew-offs, it cuts through leather just like a hot knife through butter. So check out the Guggenheim brand. They have a lifetime warranty on their scissors. If they ever break or they go dull or anything like that, just contact them and they'll mail you a brand new pair. I don't even think they'll ask for the old pair back. They're that committed to their product. So if you're using a different type of shears right now or a different type of scissors, You want to check them out. They do a great job. All right. Why don't we go to the Army now, since we have Veterans Day coming up this week? This is some canvas from a U.S. Army shelter half that I got at a surplus store. And I thought we would sew through 2 layers of this canvas on this Necchi model NE30, just to show that you can sew canvas on a contemporary machine and it's not going to blow up. It's not going to fall apart. You need to maintain the machine properly, but it's going to do a good job for you. So I think on this one, I'd like to do a 3-point zigzag. And then I'll let the audience pick another stitch from one of the rows on this machine. Just don't ask me to do a buttonhole. I don't do buttonholes. Never have, never will. So I'll set it up for a 3-point zigzag, which is stitch number 9 on Cindy's machine. Stitch number 9. And notice as I change it, the needle is moving. I think you can see that. So I've got the needle clear of the material. We'll do a 3-point zigzag, and then I'll let you pick the other stitch that we'll lay down on these 2 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. And if you don't know what a shelter half is, if you never served in the military, that's okay. A shelter half is a hasty way of having shelter when you're out in a field setting. There's usually a couple of poles that are going to support the shelter half, and then you're going to drape it and suspend it over the top of yourself to protect yourself from the elements. We used it in Saudi Arabia to try to give us some protection from the sandstorms. If you've ever been in a sandstorm, I know they have awful sandstorms out in California, Arizona sometimes too. If you get pelted by sand, it feels like needles going into your skin. So having a shelter half made out of canvas protecting you from the wind or the sand or the rain or the whatever you got, it really makes a huge difference in keeping you safe and keeping you more comfortable. So I'll lay down a 3-point zigzag on this, and then I'll let you pick the other stitch from, let me see, what stitch? Well, actually, I'll give you like 5 stitches to pick from. Why don't we do it that way? Makes it a little bit simpler. When we come back, if Susie or somebody or Jenny or somebody wants to type into the live chat, when we come back, I'll let you pick stitch number 11, number 24, 25, or 27. So hopefully you got those, because I probably won't remember. I'm tired and it's late and I won't remember what I said, but I think I said number, whatever I said. Hopefully Susie caught it and somebody will pick one of those numbers and then we can sew one of those off after this 3-point zigzag. I get goofy when I get tired. Does anyone else get goofy when you get tired? So I'm going to do this 3-point zigzag down through this canvas now. We'll see how this universal feed does with the presser foot regulating the pressure automatically. And then we'll jump into another stitch of your choice. Give it a little bit more gas so you can see it's got speed. Actually, I got the speed regulated. Let me speed it up a little bit more. Here we go. Yeah. And I only got to that's only about halfway. That's only about halfway. So if you like speed, if you have a need for speed, as they say, if you have a need for speed, the Necchi model NE30 that belongs to Cindy, it's got some speed. It's definitely got some speed. All right, let me give that a clip. And I didn't look at the live chat to see if Susie was able to capture those numbers that I said before. Otherwise, I'll take a swing at it and try to do it. Oh yeah, she did. Oh, Jenny caught it as well. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. So 11, 24, 25, or 27. So yeah, if anyone wants to toss out a request as far as the stitch that we sew on this U.S. Army grade canvas, I'll show you this 3-point zigzag, and then the preponderance of the votes, whether there's more people that want to see stitch 11 or 24 or 25 or 27, Or if no one casts a vote, I'll let the moderators, my leadership team that is present this evening on the live stream, either Jenny or Susie, those two ladies can put their heads together real quick in a virtual sense and decide what stitch we're going to lay down on this U.S. Army grade canvas shelter half. We'll take a look at that 3-point zigzag to begin with. One of my favorite stitches, honestly. I love this stitch. And look at how well this Necchi did laying that down. 2 layers of canvas is not a super easy material to sew. And this Necchi model NE30 did an excellent job. So take a look at that lock stitch. And Susie wants me to show those stitches again, no problem. You can see here, see how that has a looseness to it? Look at the sharpness of this stitch for the top stitch. See how sharp that is? We turn it over, look at that lock stitch. It looks a little bit loose, doesn't it? So what do we need to do to tighten up that stitch if we were to sew it again? Just not quite as tight, is it? What adjustment would we make to the machine to make that lock stitch a little bit more defined? What would we do? What would we change? Yeah, Jenny likes the 3-point zigzag as well. All right, let me show you those. Let me show those stitches again. I'm going to write them down. I'll write them down and then I'll show them to you one at a time. So the ladies on the leadership team had captured stitch 11, 24, 25, or 27. That's what I've got written down now. Okay, so let me show those to you. Stitch 11 is going to be this real complex one. Where's my finger? There it is. Stitch 11 is going to be that one right there. And then we got stitch, so that's stitch 11. Very complex stitch. Then we've got 24 down here. It's kind of a fun one. Right above my finger there. And we've got 25 right next to it. And 27. I didn't give you 26 as a choice, but you could certainly pick 26. That's fine. So again, 11 right there. 24. 25. 26. Ha ha! 27. Oh, what the heck. You can also pick 28. We've already done 29 and 30. I don't think we did 28. So one of those stitches, if you all want to put your heads together and express your preferences. If you don't, then the moderating team will pick the stitch that we lay down on this U.S. Army grade canvas. All right, let me get the canvas back into position. And if no one answered the question as far as tightening up this lock stitch a little bit, we would increase our upper tension. So right now we're on 5. We might bump it up to 6 or maybe 6.5 because canvas is a very dense material. It's hard to get through there. And remember with the lock stitch, that needle has to pass down and then pull that thread back up through. So it requires just a little bit more tension to make that a nicely defined stitch. It's not a bad looking stitch. That's our lock stitching, but it's not quite as pretty and defined as our top stitch. Our top stitch has a little bit more definition, a little bit of pizzazz, a little bit more pizzazz. So let me get this back into position and we'll see what the verdict is. See what the verdict is as far as our other stitch we're going to lay down on these 2 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas. What are we going to lay down? So My Adventures wants to see 25. My Adventures out of Southern California is saying, Scott, Let's do 25, buddy. Let's do 25. And Jenny is saying 11 complex, 24 Ziggy, 25 leaf. Oh, are these the real names? I love it. I love people that know what these stitches are actually called. Thank goodness for Jenny. Crescent, what is that? Cressini moon? And then a ladder. I didn't know there was a stitch called a ladder stitch. Is that what that one was? The number 28, is that a ladder stitch? This is a ladder stitch, isn't it? Kind of looks like a ladder, doesn't it? Where is it? Right there. That must be the ladder stitch right there. And that does look like a crescent moon, doesn't it? Yeah. So if Jenny and Susie can narrow it down to one stitch, Jenny, you give me your favorite stitch, and it can't be 25 because our friend from Southern California already picked 25. So it's got to be one of the other stitches other than stitch 25. So Jenny will pick hers. Oh, Jenny made them up too. Jenny. I thought Jenny was like our stitch expert now. Ha ha! Yeah, I like making up names too on stitches. It's a lot better usually than what the manufacturer comes up with, don't you think? Jenny made them. Jenny, you got me. See, Jenny knows that when I get tired, I get just plain goofy. Susie knows this as well. So she's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to make names up, and Scott's going to think it's the official name. It's not. Oh, golly. So Jenny is going to pick 28. Our friend from California is going to pick 25. Susie, what are you picking? Did you already pick one, Susie? Susie's got to pick one. Let me start with 25 for our friend from Southern California. I better leave enough room so I can get all of these on there. And some of these are going to have, if you're working with a stitch that's tri-motion, it's going to start to pull those feed dogs to the rear, usually when it launches. So you have to offset the presser foot a little bit so that the needle is actually going to be on the material. So I'll offset a little bit. We'll go to stitch 25, and we'll do that for our friend from Southern California. Let me bump it up to 25. 25 is going to be a real intense stitch with a lot of stitch overlay. A lot of stitch overlay. So we're going to eat up a ton of thread. We're going to eat up a ton of thread doing stitch 25, which is perfectly fine. And then we'll do Jenny's 28. And then we'll do Susie. Susie, you got to pick a different stitch in 25, darling. Our friend from Southern California already has 25, so you got to pick a different stitch than 25 or 28. 25 and 28 are already taken. So you could pick 11, 24, 27. Yeah, any of those. So Susie will have to pick a different stitch. 27. Okay, cool. All right, so let's do 25 first. Then we'll do 28, and then we'll do 27. And hopefully I have enough room. Hopefully I have enough room. Or maybe I'll just bump this over just a little bit further. All right. For our friend from Southern California, stitch 25. And this is gonna take a while because it does a ton of overlay. See if I can take you down there. Little Johnny is getting ready to go off to college. We're going to be here for a while, folks. Another spool of thread, please. Yes, kidding. We haven't gone through all the thread yet. All right, and stop. That was pretty exciting. See what I'm talking about? Oh, you can't see anything. Duh. That is a lot of thread. I think we just used about a quarter of the spool. No, we didn't. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But that is an intense stitch. And I don't know what would Jenny, since Jenny's making up names, which I love. I love people that make up names for stitches. What would we call this stitch? What would y'all call this one? It's got kind of a cool stitch, isn't it? Got that intensity. How would you use a stitch like this? What would you use a stitch like this for? I wonder. Beautiful stitch, really cool. Kind of goes along with that 3-point zigzag beautifully. Now let's see how our upper tension did in managing something like this through all of that canvas, 2 layers of canvas. It actually did a really good job. It did a really good job of managing. It actually did a better job with this ornamental type stitch than it did with that 3-point zigzag. Our 3-point zigzag was just a little bit on the loose side. We could have done better with that. But this one, it did a really good job of regulating that stitch tension for that lock stitch. Really good job. Beautiful stitch. I love it. Great choice. Great choice. All right, let's do Jenny's now. We'll do 28. Just give this a clip and we'll lay down 28 next to this one. Move that thread back. So what you're hopefully witnessing as we go through this process is you're saying to yourself, you know what? I was a little bit of a snob before. I was a little bit of a snob. I was like, oh, no way. I am true blue. I am true blue to my vintage sewing machines. I never, ever, ever, ever will use one of those contemporary machines. Just won't do it. But you're starting to see now that these contemporary machines can deliver certain stitches that are just really desirable. They're really, really desirable stitches. Good looking stitches. There we go. I think that'll still give me enough room for Susie's stitch next to it. So let's do 28 now. 28 is going to be, I think it's like a ladder stitch or whatever we decided to call it. There we are. We'll do 28 now for Jenny, and then we'll do Susie's stitch last. So I got to bump this up to 28. And again, when you're changing your stitch selector, whether it's on a machine like this NE30 or one of your vintage machines, always have that needle clear of the material, because that needle is going to move as you change that stitch selector, and it's going to bend your needle if you're not careful. So this next stitch is for Jenny. I think I got that right. 28. Jenny was 28, right? And Jenny's saying, no, I'm 70. Ha ha! I don't have 70 stitches, dear. I don't have 70 stitches. I'm checking the live chat to make sure I got it right. 25. Where was it? Oh, yeah. My vote is 28. The ladder stitch. Okay. And then Susie is 27. Okay. Got it. Okay. I'm caught up. I'm caught up finally. Finally caught up. All right. Here goes the ladder stitch for Jenny. All right. Here we go. Look at that tri-motion working. It is moving that canvas back and forth very, very rapidly. Very, very rapidly. All right. Take a look at this ladder stitch now. Yeah, very cool. A lot of overlay on the base of that stitch pattern. And it looks like we did a fairly good job of maintaining it top and bottom. We'll take a closer look at it now. And again, for some of these stitches, I'm just using the wrong needle. And I don't mean the wrong needle as far as using a Schmetz needle, but I'm using a size 90-14 needle, which is really for more medium range type sewing. It's not 90 isn't really in the heavy class, but it's getting up there. And so we would do a lot better if we were sewing a ladder stitch like this, or even the stitch for our friend from Southern California, if we were to go a little bit on the smaller scale, maybe a size 80 or maybe even a size 75 embroidery needle would do real well. So our needle is a little bit big for what we're doing on some of these patterns, but that's okay. That's okay. We're going to check them out and see how we did using the setup that we have. We go over to here. Go across and look at this one. Yeah, lovely, lovely stitch. Good stitch integrity. And for the needle we're using in the setup we have, we're getting some real good detail and some clarity of stitch as well. Can always be better. But some real good clarity of stitch on that ladder stitch for Jenny. We'll flip it over and look at that lock stitch. And here, when you look at this lock stitch, you can see we might have benefited on that overlay part of the base of the stitch pattern. We might have benefited from maybe having just a little bit more upper tension. It's got some good integrity of stitch. The spacing is good. The formation is good. But when you look at the base of that stitch, we could use just a little bit more tightness on it. See that loopiness where the thread isn't quite as snug as it was on the top stitch. And that's simply a product of the upper tension being bullied by the bobbin case. The bobbin case is a bully. The bobbin case is a bully, and it didn't allow that upper tension to do its job as well as it could have. But still a good-looking stitch, a real good-looking stitch. Let's do Susie's stitch now to finalize this U.S. Army grade canvas. 2 layers of it again from a shelter half. Any of you that have been in the military and have served in some harsh environments, you probably used a shelter half, and it really saved you. Quite honestly, it really saved you. I'm going to get a quick sip of tea, and then we're going to do Susie's stitch, which I believe was 27. Yep, number 27. So again, to change stitches on this machine is very, very easy, other than trying to look at this thing on camera and it's going blah, 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 blah. Right now it's saying 28, so we just bump it down 1, 27. On any of these ornamental stitches, the factory is going to give you presets already. We could always change them. We certainly could change them by hitting this button right here and adjusting the width of the zigzag or the length of the straight stitch. You just hit that button. You can see right now the default for stitch 27 for Susie, the default for the stitch width is going to be 7.0. The default for the stitch length is going to be 0.4. So very, very short. We'll go with the factory settings to try to give it every opportunity to give us a look of the stitch as they intended at Necchi. But so far I don't know if you're in agreement with me. If you're not, that's okay. But I think all in all, I've been impressed with how this Necchi model NE30 has done. I mean, we're doing 2 layers of canvas right now. We're doing some very complex stitching. We've already done the velvet material. We've already done protected full grain leather. We've done 2 layers of Italian leather. And we also did this bubblegum material as well. And this Necchi machine, which was not made in Italy. It was not made in Italy. It was made in Taiwan. Truth be told, it was made in Taiwan. They built a good machine, the folks over in Taiwan, on behalf of Necchi. And I'm sure Necchi, like any manufacturer, probably kept a real close eye on them and made sure that they had the right QA in place, the right quality assurance to make sure that this machine would perform and perform at a level that was complementary to the name of Necchi and certainly not a detriment. It's done well so far. It's done well. All right, Susie's is 27. All right, I think we're all set. Let me do this final stitch row. Get this adjusted so you can see the material moving through. And then we'll move on to something else. All right, here we go. And I'll just say real quick, I'll pause real quick and say, all of you can be my witnesses along with the video that this machine came into the workshop with major issues with the feed dogs and the material feed. It's not having any issues now. We're on autopilot, autopilot. Keep it straight, keep it straight. Keep it straight, autopilot. Nice job, nice job. I'm going to stop right there. What a beautiful stitch. I think that's the crescent stitch, isn't it? That's the stitch that we decided to call a crescent stitch, or that Jenny did. 3-point zigzag, this stitch here, whatever we came up with, the ladder stitch, and then the crescent stitch right next to it. And again, we're not sewing with an embroidery needle. We could get even a better outcome as far as these decorative ornamental type stitches with a smaller needle. We're using a size 90-14, and it doesn't allow you to go quite as intricate, does it? But it still does a real decent job because it's a Schmetz needle, right? It's a Schmetz needle. Look at all of those. I could pull the thread a little bit more. Yeah, it did an excellent job with Susie's stitch. Did a great job with Jenny's stitch here, the ladder stitch. And it did a real good job with this other stitch for our friend from Southern California. Yeah, good looking top stitching. Real good looking top stitching. We turn it over. We'll take a look at the lock stitching. The upper tension was set just in a sweet spot for this crescent stitch. I'm seeing a lock stitch. The ultimate goal is that when you look at the top stitch and the lock stitch, you really can't tell them apart unless you're sewing paper. If you're sewing paper, you'll be able to tell them apart because you'll see that punch through, as you've seen me sew off on certain machines with that Amazon packing parchment paper. You can tell right away where that lock stitch is. But on this, that tension did such a great job of regulating this crescent stitch that Susie selected. You can't really tell the lock stitch from the top stitch. They're almost identical. And that's the ultimate goal. When you can get that top stitch and lock stitch looking virtually identical, you've got a sweet spot as far as the settings and the setup that you have for that machine. So, but some really good sewing by this Necchi model NE30 on these 2 layers of canvas, sewing a wide variety of stitches from the most intricate to something that's a little bit more straightforward and basic, like this 3-point zigzag. But did a really, really decent job. Yeah, did a real decent job. So I think Cindy is going to be real happy when she gets this machine back. With the adjustments I made, it's feeding material very well now. The slippery material, the heavier material, it's just doing a decent job all the way around, generating some really lovely stitching, as you can see there in the shot. Yeah. So are there contemporary machines, as Jenny had just written, are there contemporary machines that can really kind of surprise you? Are there contemporary machines that can deliver a punch to heavier materials like canvas and leather and still keep on trucking? There are. And apparently the ones that are being made on behalf of Necchi now, which I believe is owned by Janome, are doing a decent job of producing a quality machine that should serve Cindy for many years. And as Jenny just wrote in the live chat, she'd be happy with a machine like this. It really does seem to do a nice job and get the job done. Yeah. All right, let's move on to something else, and then we'll move towards wrapping this live stream up so that all of you can get back to your evening. Those of you that are on the West Coast, it's kind of early evening. Those of us that are on the East Coast, it's much later here. It's going on 8:30 here. And but I just enjoy the time with the family. I truly do. And time races away. It doesn't matter how long we're together. It's always too short for me. It's always too short. I just enjoy all of you. I enjoy your company. I enjoy your contributions. And I learn as much from you in live streams and premieres as you learn from me. And that's the blessing of having our diverse backgrounds. We all bring our special experiences and our tools to the table. And if we're wise, we can listen to that other person in the live stream or the live chat and learn something new from them. Yeah. Oh, and Susie just posted, I think, the Schmetz needle guide, which is a great resource to have. Schmetz has so many different needles available for specialty type sewing. I tend to stick with the universal because it's easy, and it does a very good job. But there are so many great needles that Schmetz makes. And I realize there are other makers of sewing machine needles, but I just think that they make the best needle in the world, quite honestly. And they follow us on Facebook. They follow us on YouTube as well. We consider them to be friends of ours. They consider us to be friends of theirs. And, if there's another needle out there that you want me to try, I'll give it a go. I think Oregon makes a great needle. I've sewn with the Hello Kitty needles from Walmart. I read that note to you from a vice president of Walmart one time that said, "Thanks for trying our product on your live stream and for giving it a chance." If you don't know what that looks like, I'll show you real quick. This is, and I got it wrong. I said Hello Kitty. It's Hello Hobby. Walmart has their own brand of needles, if you didn't know that. It's called the Hello Hobby needle. This is their embroidery needle. You can see it's a size 7511. This would have been a good needle to sew some of these patterns with. It probably, even though it's not a Schmetz needle, it's engineered and designed to do more embroidery sewing, and it probably would have been a better needle to choose for some of these stitches. But these are available at Walmart. They're a little bit cheaper than Schmetz needles. Give them a try. See what you think. And then contact Walmart. I forget the vice president's name that contacted us to say thanks so much for giving us a chance. But it was some big shot with Walmart, and they reached out, some lady, and I'm grateful for her having done that because it validates we're a small channel in the great scheme of YouTube, but we got some pretty important people watch what we do here. So give those Hello Kitty needles, Hello Hobby needles a try and see what you think. You never know. You might like them. But you'll see me using Schmetz needles on this channel more than anything. Susie uses Schmetz needles. I believe Jenny does as well. Candido and Rachel out in New York use them. And I just think that they're a real fine needle. Now, we didn't sew satin yet. Satin is a tricky material to sew. This is actually from a satin pillowcase. And I think we should give satin an opportunity as well underneath the presser. We'll go through 2 layers of this. This is going to be a little bit of a challenge for this machine, potentially to feed it straight. So I'll be standing by to guide it and see if we can help it out to have success. And trying to decide what kind of stitch I want to choose for satin. I probably don't want to go too ornamental on satin unless I put a stiffener in there. I don't want to go too ornamental. So let me look at the stitches that I've got real quick and see if I can pick one. Maybe a blind hem type stitch would work. I could go with stitch 13 or stitch 10. Let me show you what those stitches look like. If y'all want to help me pick, stitch 10 is right there. We could possibly try that on this satin, or I would be open to trying stitch 13 right there. So either stitch 13 or stitch 10. What do y'all think? Stitch 10 or stitch 13, and I'll put that one to work on this satin. Does anyone else ever sew like for projects? For projects, do any of you ever use satin or silk? I don't know if Susie's ever used satin or silk, or Jenny has, or any of the other folks in the live stream right now, if they've ever used satin. But satin is, I'll just say it like my grandfather did. And now that I'm in Kentucky with Susie, I can get away with saying it. It's almost like common language. Satin and silk is more slippery than snot. It's more slippery than snot. And when you've got a machine like this where it's choosing how much pressure it's going to put on this material, maybe it'll do a better job than I would do if I were manually adjusting that presser foot pressure. Because satin and silk, they are a challenge. They just are. You know, if you have too much pressure, you're going to get puckering. If you don't have enough pressure, you're going to get the stitch line is going to be all over the place. So we'll see how we do. And it looks like the ladies have picked. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It looks like Susie and our friend from California, Southern California, has picked stitch 13. So I'm going to set it up for stitch 13, and we'll see how we do. Look at that needle just jumping all over the place. That's why you have to have it. You have to have it out of the material, otherwise you'll bend that needle. Let me see if I can show you. Okay, stitch 13. If I show you on the screen, it's going to be like stitch 13. We'll give this a try. See how this machine does with regulating the feed of this material, this tricky, slipperier than snot satin material. Hopefully it does a good job, because I've been pretty impressed with this machine so far. All right, here we go. I'll take it a little bit slower, give it a chance to get its job done here. Seems to be feeding well. I'm going to increase the speed a little bit. Okay, let's see how we did. Tension's a factor too, isn't it? Okay, I can already see this is our top stitching. Let me rotate the camera down. This is our top stitching, and you're gonna see right away. Right away, when you look at the lock stitch, you're gonna say, aha! I've been listening, Scott. I've been listening. Right away, when you see that lock stitch, you're going to be able to say whether the upper tension or whether the bobbin case was dominant in this instance. Because as I'm looking at the top stitch, it's not quite as defined as I would like to see. So that might already give you a clue as to the direction I'm thinking, but you might think about it differently, and that's okay. That's okay. Let me pull this out. We'll take a look at this. I'm going to, right away, so I don't get confused, give me 1 second here. It's getting late and I get goofy. So right away, I'm going to put a T on here. I don't know if that'll write on there or not. Maybe it won't. You sort of can see it, not really. That's our top stitching right there. We'll pull our thread out. That's our top stitching right there. It's a good looking stitch. This is stitch 13 on this Necchi model 30. Let me get it up there so you can see it. But I don't think it's quite as pronounced as it could be. Those joining stitches that connect these peak points, it doesn't have quite as much clarity as I would want to see. It's just a little bit underdefined. Still good looking, still a decent stitch. Still a decent stitch. But when you see the lock stitch on the underside, you're going to see what I'm saying right away by it being a little bit underdefined. Just show it to you one more time. Come out a little bit like this. Just turn it over and look at that lock stitch. Now this has much more clarity than that top stitch, in my opinion, at least from where I'm looking at it right here. Which means our upper tension was kind of beating up on that bobbin case this time. It was beat up, the bobbin case beat up on the upper tension on the other stitch line, and now the upper tension is getting revenge. And that's the thing, when you sew through a wide field of materials like I do on live streams, we go through a wide, let me show it to you this way as well. It might be easier to see it. I'll back the camera up a little bit. When we sew through a wide variety of materials and we do a wide variety of stitches, you're going to see it's like running an Olympics. And you might have to be able to make certain adjustments to maintain the clarity of that stitch. There's our lock stitching again. I'll show it to you like this. Everything's backwards on the camera, so I'm like, which way do I go? Lock stitching, top stitching. So you may be seeing it differently than I am. I'm looking at the laptop screen kind of across the workbench, and then I'm looking down on these stitches. Both of them are decent. Don't get me wrong. Both of them are decent. But we can always make things better, right? Always make things better. So sewing on satin and silk, it is a little bit of a challenge. It's a little bit of a challenge. And I think all in all, this Necchi model NE30, I just handled it really well. And I was a little bit of a skeptic when it came to the universal presser foot pressure, but I can see that they've got some good science behind it. They've got some decent science behind it. And it's handled all of these materials, I think, with a great deal of skill, maybe more skill than I would have done by manually adjusting them. Because satin and silk, if you've ever sewn on it, it is a feed nightmare, or it can be, depending on how your presser foot pressure is set. And some of you watching now or watching later may say, presser what? Most machines, or many machines, are going to give you the opportunity either inside of the faceplate or on top of the faceplate. They're going to have a presser foot adjuster. It sometimes might be on the newer machines. It might be a plastic screw. On others, it'll be a lever inside of the faceplate. On some of the other more vintage machines, it's going to be a little thing that you turn. It's going to be made out of metal typically, and you can turn it down. It pushes on that spring with more or less pressure, and it will make or break your sewing. It really will. It'll make or break your sewing. All right, let me throw this satin to the side, and then we will. Well, let me do this. Let me do this. Let me do this. I'll show you what I have left as far as sewing material. I've got this 100% cotton with a stiffener. I've got this genuine cowhide. Oh, actually, no, I'll correct myself. This is genuine cowhide. This is elk hide. This is genuine elk hide. So elk and cowhide, 100% cotton with a stiffener. I've got some denim. And I did have this, but I'm not gonna sew in a circle on this machine because I'm getting low on bobbin thread. I'm getting low on bobbin thread after some of the sew-offs. I think stitch 25 ate up quite a bit. Our friend from Southern California is like, do stitch 25. And I'm like, cool. But yeah, I don't know if we'll do the sewing in a circle. I usually do that, but it's getting real late. I think we'll skip this tonight. I hope that's okay. If you strongly object and you're like, no, I want to see you sew in a circle, Scott, I want to see you sew in a circle, then type it in the live chat and I'll reconsider. But we've got denim, we've got elk hide, cowhide, and cotton. So if anyone wants to voice an opinion on We'll do one or two more sew-offs, and then we'll wrap this up for Cindy's Necchi model NE30. If you want to see something sewn, if you want to see a certain stitch laid down on that particular material, I'll show you the stitches again. And the only stitch I won't do, because it's a back tack stitch and it doesn't really generate anything, it's more for a locking seam, is stitch 23. But I'd be willing to try anything other than stitch 23 or buttonholes. So we're looking at stitch 13. Stitch 13. Didn't we just do stitch 13? I think we just did stitch 13 on the satin, didn't we? But you want to see it laid down on denim. Should we do stitch 13 on denim? Is that what you're saying, Susie? Stitch 13 on denim. We can certainly pick a different stitch if you'd like. I'll show you the stitches again. They come out like this. Can you actually see that on the camera? I can't tell if you can see that or not. The only ones that I don't want to do is 23, because it's a weird back tack stitch, and the buttonholes. But the other ones I'm game for. This is the top row. Middle row. And the bottom row. Hopefully you can see that. I wish I had like a big screen above the workbench that was connected to my laptop. I could see things so much easier. Maybe I'll do that eventually. I'll add a big screen TV like above the workbench, and then I'll connect the, okay, bird foot on denim. And then our friend from Southern California had typed 13. Could you clarify my adventures are, what kind of material do you want stitch 13 sewn on out of the materials we have? Susie is bird foot, okay. And we're doing a bird foot on denim for Susie. And then if our friend from Southern California, My Adventures, wants to clarify, what are you looking for as far as stitch 13? Stitch 13. Let me start on Susie's. I'll do stitch 29 on denim. I'll do stitch 29 on denim, and then we'll see if there's any other requests before we wrap this up. And on the denim, I've got 1 layer, 2 layers. So if I fold it over, we could do 4 layers of denim. I think that would be a fair test for this contemporary machine. And we can lay down the bird foot stitch on this. Maybe I'll do it on the lighter side because it'd be easier to see it maybe. So I'll fold it this way. So 4 layers of denim on the bird foot stitch. The bird foot stitch. Let me get this into position. It's almost a little bit snug, but I think I can pull it off. It's a little bit snug. Okay. And this will really give us an idea of how that universal presser foot pressure works. Okay, and our friend from California is saying, what about the leaf stitch on denim? Which one is the leaf stitch? Give me the number. I'll show you the stitches on the bottom. I think you're talking about one of the stitches on the bottom. Which one of these is the leaf stitch? Is it 26? If you could just clarify which one is the leaf stitch. 24. Okay, 24. Okay, so let's do the bird foot, and then we'll do 24. And hopefully I'm not biting off more than I should chew with these 4 layers of denim. I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay. I'm just not having any control over the presser foot pressure just makes me a little bit more nervous. A little bit more nervous about how this universal thing is going to manage this, but we'll see. So I'll do the bird foot, and then I'll do stitch 26. Wait a second. Now I've got two numbers, 24, 26. 24. Are we looking at, okay, 26? So are we going to stick with 26 then? The bird foot one and then 26. Okay, I'll do 26. Looks like I got 26 twice from our friend in California. Back this up a little bit. We'll get this set up over here. We'll start with Susie's, which is 29. We'll do Susie's first, and then we'll do 26 after that. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's see how this universal feed does with a thicker sew-off like these 4 layers of denim. I'm going to take my hands off. Autopilot. We'll see how it does. Doing a good job. Kind of going crooked here a little bit. Turn, 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 turn. All right, stop right there. And before I show the stitch to you, we'll do the second stitch off. Well, this is going to be a booger to see. It's real light. Light against light. Beautiful stitching. We'll take a close look at it. We'll do the other stitch for My Adventures, which I think is 26. We'll do 26 now on here. And again, we're sewing with a Schmetz Universal 9014 needle. We've got Coats & Clark thread, dual duty XP thread, and we're sewing through 4 layers of denim material with this Necchi model 30. Boy, I'm getting tired. How hard is it to remember the number 30? Apparently a lot harder than I realized. Jiminy Crickets, I want to ring the bell. Okay, so now we're going to do stitch 26. So I'm just going to adjust this down here. Isn't that crazy? I'm looking at the laptop right now. It's like going bug house. Stitch 26, and we'll try this on the denim material. See how it does. Yeah, you can kind of see the stitching there. It's a little bit hard to see with that lighter denim color. I probably should have flipped it the other way with the darker side, but oh well. All right, let's try this stitch number 26. Let me just adjust this a little bit because it's going to do that tri-motion pullback when it launches, I believe. Well, let's see here. Let me move that a little bit further in. It's having trouble feeding this one a little bit. Maybe it's too much for it. We'll see. Yeah, I didn't have the material all the way underneath the presser foot. I'm not sure how well that universal feed is working right now. I'm not seeing enough movement of the material for this particular stitch, stitch 26. I'm not seeing enough movement of that material. We may not be able to accomplish this on the 4 layers of denim. I'll give it one more try, but I think that this might be a little bit too much for that universal feed. Yeah, I don't think we're getting movement. You're not seeing any movement either on camera, are you? Yeah, I think that's a fail. Stitch 26 is a fail as far as 4 layers of denim. That universal presser foot feed is not able to manage it with that stitch. Let's try a different material and see if we can pull it off. Because I do want to see stitch 26. I don't think we've seen that. So it was able to accomplish the stitch for stitch, what was it? The bird foot one, 29. But 26 was a fail on this. It did not do a good job at all on stitch 26. Let's take a look and see what we got, and then we'll try 26 on a different material to see if it's going to do a better job for us. I'm trying to remember which way. Yeah, that's the top stitch. Take a close look at this. It's really hard to see on that lighter material, but it is a really good looking stitch that we did. The first one, I'm trying to remember, was that 20, whatever stitch we did. It's getting late, sorry. Let's try the other side, lock stitch. This is a little bit easier to see. Yeah, see, that stitch just was a fail. It didn't want to feed that material at all. So the way we discover things about a sewing machine, finding what its limitations are, is by doing things just like this in a live stream. 4 layers of denim, 26 is not going to get it done. Maybe we can try it on leather. Let me see if I can try it on leather and see if we get a different outcome. I'm going to try this. I haven't sewn elk hide for a long time. I'm going to see if maybe we can get this done with elk hide. And this is not a thin sew off. You see right there, it's probably about 4, almost 5 ounces of leather. Maybe 26 will work on leather when it won't work on multiple layers of denim. See how we do. I'm curious what the default settings are for 26 too. It's got a real wide setting of 7 and a real short setting of 4. I'm going to try to give us a little bit of an edge, and I may change the look of the pattern just a little bit, but 0.4 is really, really short for stitch length. I'm going to take the liberty of bumping it up just to 0.6 from 0.4 and see if that helps it to generate this stitch successfully. And we're going to try it on elk hide. Not an easy sew off, but I think it may give us a better outcome, hopefully, than the denim. We'll see. If not, we'll have to abandon stitch 26. We'll have to abandon it. I think the stitch length, the preset stitch length that the factory had given us, a 0.4, I think it was too short. We're going to change the look of the stitch a little bit, but I think we'll get hopefully a better outcome. All right, I'm going to stop right there. We'll spin it around and see what we got this time. Oh, that is a gorgeous stitch. What a great pick from our friend in Southern California. Now, this is with my adjustment. I took the liberty, the preset that they gave us for the factory setting was 0.6 as far as the stitch length. It wasn't working on the denim. We had 4 layers of denim and we were stalling out. You saw that as far as the result we got. This is the result we got on 4 layers of denim. This little right there. Yeah, it didn't work. It didn't work at all. I took the liberty of adjusting the stitch length from 0.4 to 0.6, which, you know what? The factory does what the factory does, but the sewist ultimately is the one sitting in front of that machine. And I think it was the right choice because we got a stitch that is just absolutely, are you kidding me, gorgeous. Look at that. And that's through 100% genuine elk hide. It's not a light sew off. But that's what that stitch needed, was just a little bit more length to work with. And the result was we got a stitch that I think is break-worthy. Isn't that beautiful? Now, just to give the factory people at in Taiwan working on behalf of Necchi the benefit of the doubt, maybe what I should do is stitch it one more time and put it back to the factory setting and see if we get a better outcome. And then the Necchi people can say, see, we know better than you, Scott. And they might know better than me because they probably did a lot of testing with this particular stitch. There's our lock stitching on the back. Look at that. Look at that. I mean, it's a rough material, isn't it? If you've never sewn elk hide before, it's kind of a new adventure. It's got a nap on there that's very intense. Very, very intense. Okay, I finally thought of it. I'm so embarrassed because Paula's a good friend of ours, and she's been part of the leadership team for a long time. I was thinking that she wasn't in Florida, but she is. Paula is in West Palm Beach, Florida. Remember before earlier, I went brain dead and I was trying to say, well, where? I think we got these little clips for holding material. I think we got them from Paula. Where the heck does she live? Where does she live? She lives in West Palm Beach, Florida. So it is Florida. It is Florida. For some reason I was thinking South Carolina, North Carolina. I have no idea. It's going on 9 o'clock on the East Coast, and I don't regret having done this live stream. We had a number of new people join us. It's so nice to have new folks join us. But yeah, I get goofy. I get really goofy when it gets late. All right, so I'm going to put this genuine elk hide back underneath the presser foot one more time. We can look at that beautiful leaf style stitch that our friend from Southern California picked. Just a gorgeous pattern. And I'm going to go back to factory setting. I'm going to go back to factory settings. So stitch 26, factory setting was 0.4. I bumped it up to 0.6. We're going back to factory setting, 0.4. So let's see if it works. Otherwise, I can shake my finger at Necchi and say, I just bailed you guys out. I bailed you out. Your stitch wasn't working at 0.6, the automatic factory default. You got to go longer. You got to go longer. It's like football. You got to go long, right? So let's give it another try. I think it was really an issue of the denim, the multiple layers of denim. It just couldn't get that universal feed, couldn't get that material to move like it was supposed to. Whereas a manual adjustment to that presser foot pressure probably would have worked. I don't know. That's my bias. All right, let's give it a try again. Here we go. We're not getting feed. Do you see that? We're stuck. It's underneath the presser foot. And that 0.4, the factory default, I'm going to give it one more try. The factory default is not working. It's not working. There's no material feed. There's no material feed. Watch this. We're stuck. We're stuck. We're spinning. We're in snow. We're in snow. I'm going to adjust it back. Aha! Necchi, you can learn something from us on the Cow Country channel. Your factory default, it should be set at 0.6. It should not be set at 0.4. It's too short. It's too short. All right, let's just give them let's just go up a little bit. Can we do it at 0.5? Can we do it at 0.5? Will 0.5 work? Otherwise, my gut told me to go to 0.6 and victory. Total victory. Total victory at 0.6. Will 0.5 work? Let's see. No, I don't think so. Nope, we're stuck. We're stuck. We're stuck at 0.5. Let's finish this off at 0.6. Let's finish this off at 0.6. All right, let's get this done. Let's go. And there you go. Oh, you can't see it. What did I do? Did I not adjust it back? So this is what we just finished sewing. We tried it at 0.4, and this is what we were getting down here. We tried it at 0.5, and that's what we were getting right there. The factory default was 0.4. We even bumped it up by 1/10. I think that would be 1/10. We bumped it up from 0.4 to 0.5. It still failed on this elk hide, just like it did on the denim. So I'm not going to fault the denim anymore. I'm not going to fault the denim. As a matter of fact, we could go back to the denim and try it at 0.6 and see if we had success. What do y'all think? Because 0.6 for this pattern, the preset that the factory gave us doesn't work. It does not work. Even when we bumped it up to 0.5, it does not work on elk hide or on denim. So I would be willing to say that 0.6 is the sweet spot. So if you've got a machine that has some of these fancy stitches and they've got factory preset width and length, don't be afraid to change it, because that might be the difference between you having success or failure. That might be totally the difference between having success and failure. With a factory default, this is what we got. Even bumping it up to 0.5, that's what we got. My gut said 0.6 right away. I jumped right to 0.6, and it's a slam dunk. It's a slam dunk on the lock stitch and on the top stitch. I'm going to go back to that denim. Just hang with me for a second. We're going to go back to that denim so that I can show you it wasn't the machine's fault. I don't think it was the machine's fault. I think it was the factory fault in giving the wrong preset. The factory gave the wrong preset. So I'm going to go back to those 4 layers of denim where this is all we were able to get. That's all we were able to get right there. That was it. Now, if we go up to 0.6, will we have success? Maybe not. Maybe it is the denim. I don't think so. Maybe it is the denim, but I think it's the preset. So this was our preset before when we tried this sew off. We're going to bump it up to 0.6 and see if that will do it for us with these 4 layers of denim. Where we failed before, hopefully we'll have victory, because we used our own noggin. We didn't say, well, the factory knows more than us. We said at Cow Country, we sometimes, we're always a student. Hear that loud and clear. We're always a student, but we're also real good teachers in this classroom. All of us, every single one of us in this live stream can know more than some of those people at the factories, don't you think? Because we're in the trenches. We're doing this every day. And sometimes the people at the factory, they get it wrong. They get it wrong. So let's see. We pulled it off on this elk hide. Now we're going to see if we can pull it off on the denim where we failed before doing that stitch. Wait, we didn't do this. We did a different stitch, didn't we? What stitch did we do? No, we did. We tried to do 26, didn't we? Yeah, we tried to do 26. That was 26 right here, and it was a fail. So now we've adjusted the stitch length to 0.6 from 0.4. You can tell I'm getting tired. But I think this is the stitch we were trying to do on the 4 layers of denim. All right, let's give it a go and see what happens. And that is the difference right there, isn't it? That is the difference right there. We tried these 4 layers of denim, Going with the factory preset setting, it was an absolute, where's my camera? We tried it with the preset setting. It was an absolute fail right up there. Look at what we just got going over it with our 0.6 adjustment for the stitch length. We'll get a little bit closer to it. Come on, camera. We're almost done. That's where it does that little back tack thing. Don't worry about that. Is there a lock stitching? I sure like the way this presents more on leather, don't you? But sometimes you can have a fail and you're saying, why did it fail? I used the machine the way the factory set it up. I used it exactly the way they have it set up. They're smarter than I am. Well, in this instance, we found out that they're not. Sometimes you have to look at your machine as a sewist and say, I know this machine better than the factory because I've spent more time with it. They pushed it down a line, they put it together. They may have done one or two sew-offs real quick, but I've spent more time with this machine than those factory people. And that's where you have to look at that preset like I showed you on this Necchi machine. I'm going to set this right here. On this Necchi machine, when you pick a stitch like 26, you've got an opportunity to use your discretion to make adjustments. You hit it like this, it's giving us a preset of 7, it's giving a preset of 4.4. And sometimes you need to adjust that stitch width or that stitch length to have success. Whether you're sewing elk hide like this, or whether you're sewing denim like this. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think that this looks a lot better than that. It does, doesn't it? So I may, or Susie might reach out to Necchi and say, we showcased your Necchi model NE30 for a customer. And it's a great little machine. It's a great little machine, but you need to revisit your presets because 0.4 is not going to get the job done. You need to go to 0.6 and have them watch this live stream, have them watch this video and see that they also, as smart as they are students just like us. And we can learn from each other, don't you think? We can all learn from each other. All right, I'm going to wrap up this live stream. It's really late. It's really, really late. We've been going about 2 hours and 30 minutes. Susie and I did a live stream this morning as well for Guggenheim to help them out a little bit and promote their scissors and shears. You'll want to check that out as well. I would certainly encourage you to and maybe consider giving them a try. They've got some great products and they always have a lifetime warranty on their scissors. So to revisit what we did in this live stream, and again, thank you to everybody that was here, everybody that popped in and had to pop away. We love you all. We certainly appreciate you. We appreciate your commitment to being here at whatever hour it is where you are. I mean, we have people visiting from Sweden and Germany and everywhere else around the world. It might be the middle of the night. One of you in the shadows right now might be 2 o'clock in the morning where you are. And we are so humbled and so honored by your presence. We truly are. But we're also grateful to the customers that bring these machines to us so we can learn together. This Necchi model NE30 has taught us a valuable lesson. Love your machine, take care of your machine, but realize that sometimes the people that set up your machine maybe got something wrong. And don't be afraid to color outside of the lines. Am I right or wrong? Don't be afraid to color outside of the lines and say, I've spent more time with this machine than they did at the factory. I'm going to try it my way. I'm going to try it my way and see what happens. And that was the difference between walking away from this live stream with fail or failure and having success with that particular stitch that our friend from Southern California picked. So we sewed 4 layers of denim tonight. We did genuine elk hide, and we laid down that stitch, 26? Well, they laid down that stitch 26 and really could celebrate the beauty of that leaf stitch. We sewed the bubblegum material. We sewed Italian leather, 2 layers of that, because the roots of Necchi are Italy, right? They're Italy. So we had to do Italian leather. We did protected full grain leather. And again, if you joined us late or you were sleeping during the class, if you were sleeping during the class, protected full grain leather is coated with a chemical to protect it from staining and to make it more durable. They use this in the fancy private jets like President Trump rides in, probably. They use it in other fancy places where people want beautiful leather that's going to last. That's what protected full grain leather is all about. We also sewed this velvet material. We're getting closer to Christmas and the holidays, and we laid down a real complex ornamental stitch on that. I think all in all, we had some real good success with that. And we also, with Veterans Day coming up, we had to sew U.S. Army grade canvas. And we laid down a variety of stitches that all of you in the audience were a part of picking. The crescent stitch, the ladder stitch. Did we ever give a name to this stitch right here? Did we ever come up with a name for that? That one right there? I don't know if we did. And then we did our 3-point zigzag stitch, which is a favorite of Jenny's and mine. I think Susie likes the 3-point zigzag as well. And then we sewed this satin material, and we laid down kind of a stretch blind hem type stitch on that. But all in all, this is what we did in this live stream right here. I think it's a sew-off sandwich, and I think it certainly qualifies this machine to graduate from the workshop and to go back to Cindy after her surgery and to give her an opportunity to really have fun with this machine. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to the moderating team for taking such good care of the family. We love you guys. And we know it took sacrifice. It took sacrifice to be here in the evening so late. So take care. God bless.